I always knew that I wanted a career in entertainment. One of the rare people from the time I was 9 years old. I was a bossy only child, telling my friends, like, you are not hitting that Destiny's Child choreography the right way, right?
That was me. Yeah.
That Mariah note in the hand to the side is not giving me what I needed to give.
Oh my God, that was me.
And from there, I said, there has to be a way to monetize this love that I have. And all of my family worked in law enforcement. They had civil service jobs where you had to get a pension. You do your 20 years, your 30 years, you get out, you live comfortably. But for me, that wasn't enough. And so it was a hard sell to tell my parents, well, we're going to spend $50,000, $60,000 a year on tuition for me to go to Northeastern in Boston for undergrad to study the music business. I was always an overachiever, and I had started working in the entertainment business from the time I was 13 years old, carrying records for my dad's friend who was a DJ, going to all the various record labels. And so I just didn't know what aspect necessarily of entertainment it is that I wanted to pursue. But I also had a passion for communications, and I also had a passion for social issues. How do people show up in the world, whether it's their identity, their culture, their name, their space, their face? So it all kind of came together for me during these pivotal years at Northeastern, where I decided, you know what, I'm going to switch my degree to sociology, but do all of my internship experiences for 6 months out of the year during the course of 5 years in the entertainment business. And I fell in love with music PR, working with talent very closely. It was the most intimate relationship that I saw. And it was a way for me to really get to connect with folks to tell their stories in ways that were non-traditional, which also became, I guess, a theme to my career and my life to date. And so working my dream job as a publicist for A Tribe Called Quest, Leora Cohen, Chris Lighty, The Roots.
Oh, you was in like the thick of it, of Def Jam.
The thick of it. And then the week before Christmas in 2008, the woman I was working for at a small boutique PR agency became ill, had to close the doors, and she wasn't going to tell us.
Wow.
I happened to read an email that was not meant for me, but it really was meant for me, right?
Look at God.
Hello.
Look at God.
That let me know she was going to put locks on the door a week from that date. And so that would have been Christmas Day. And I said, wow, what the heck am I going to do now? I'm young. I don't think I had even hit 25 at that point. Living on my own, responsible for my own bills, my own groceries. And I left home at 17 and never went back.
Are you enjoying the conversation? Please like and subscribe to our channel. Be sure to hit the bell for notifications and be the first to know when new episodes drop.
Home is Rockland County, New York. So what people say is upstate, but it's not upstate. It's not 25 minutes outside.
Tell them, please.
Because I'm from the real upstate. Syracuse is upstate.
Yeah,
I know it.
You cold.
It's 7 hours.
You cold.
Exactly. So I had to scramble, right? Because being a hustler, which I appreciated, that was my favorite word in that brief bio that you shared. My dad came up in the 40 projects in Jamaica, Queens, one of 8 siblings, and was the first to move outside the PJs, to move us up to an acre of land upstate, to be the first one making 6 figures. So I never took that for granted. I was kind of just infused and always inspired by greatness and hustle and drive, and the fact that he never worked just one job. My dad had 3 jobs because he wanted his Benz, he wanted his fishing equipment. He wanted to be able to take his family on vacations.
His American dream.
Yes, his American dream. And it was up to me to only take that up to another level for myself and my now family and my daughter. So doors closed. At the time, there were temp agencies. Nothing was digital. This, again, is 2009, top of 2009. And I went to a temp agency and said, give me anything. I will do anything. Yes, I have a degree. Yes, I have, at that point, 8 years of professional, high-level work experience.
Right.
And they said, well, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund has a need for a human resources secretary, essentially. Somebody to come in, organize some files, papers, type a couple of things, you know.
Paper pushing.
Yeah, paper pusher.
Mm-hmm.
I'll push papers for $16 an hour. Yep.
That part.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
And so, right time, right place, perfect person to receive opportunity. Once I was there, a couple of months into this temp job, not having found anything in the entertainment business, unfortunately, the executive director passed away of the Legal Defense Fund the same week that the head of communications left to go pursue a new career opportunity. So everyone is scrambling like, this is high level. We need to make the Washington Post announcement. We need to do, you know, the big in memoriam, whether it's on TV or to our membership base. And so I said, you know what? Actually, y'all, I know you know me in this capacity, but I'm quite a talented publicist and communications director. Like, well, we don't have time to believe you or not. We're just going to give it a shot. Run with it. And I did. And that led to 4 years in a leadership capacity there, where I got to run all the social media and work on these incredible high-level court cases, distilling really complex legalese that had me at one point thinking I should go to law school. And then I spent a lot of money on an LSAT tutor to figure out that was a fail, and that was not
for me.
going to happen for me. And how we get to Grandmaster Flash is, after working at the Legal Defense Fund, I went over to the ACLU, and I said, you know what? This passion for social justice, social action, community development, and entertainment hasn't left me. And I don't believe in leaving skill sets on the table. So I'm going to take a leap and start my own company. I had no money in the bank, y'all. I was still literally surviving off of a little more than $16 an hour, but it was still a nonprofit salary over the years. And the same month it was that I decided to take the leap and go to LegalZoom.com and create my own LLC, I was heading off on a vacation to Cuba. And en route to Cuba, stopped in Miami. And I won free round trip air in first class from a raffle, literally. And
You were
in
just
first class,
destined.
hello.
Like lucky.
Yes,
Like, yeah,
very, very
it's
blessed.
crazy.
In first class was Grandmaster Flash. So I didn't want to bother him on the flight.
Oh, he was on the plane.
He was on the plane.
I'm thinking that you were like at baggage claim. And
Well, when we got off, we're at baggage claim. And I just walked up to him like, you know, I'm in the Bronx right now too. I know my hip hop. I'm throwing everything.
Right,
Now he's gonna leap onto something that I'm
Yeah.
saying to say, all right, let me give this girl a shot. And it wasn't really a hard sell. He was like, matter of fact, homie, next week I have the Get Down filming with Netflix, which at the time was Baz Luhrmann's biggest production. Almost $100 million to put that together with Jaden Smith. Incredible
there was
cast.
a lot of afros they had to buy.
Yes. And I said, you know what? I will work for free. I had a company, I had bills, but I said, I will work for free if you let me be your publicist. So let's do it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You, at 17, you left and you never went back home.
Correct.
And you've had so many moments where you just took a chance on yourself.
Yes.
Do you feel like that's just kind of been innately in you from the beginning, or there was like, or did you ever have a moment where you're like, I need to go back home? Because there are people who, like me, I never went back home. Once I left, it was like, we gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
So how did that feel for you? Because at each of these pivotal points, it was like you took a huge leap of faith, or you just stepped out on faith and showed up for yourself.
Yes.
What was that experience like in those moments where it was like it got really hard, but you're like, I can't look back?
Definitely. I feel like scary would be the default, but I actually wasn't scared. It just felt like keep it pushing. You know, even in dark days that I may have, that same spirit of keep it pushing is what gets me through. And so embracing the pivots, knowing that I did have a cushion, right? If I ever really, really needed to, mom and dad would cut the check.
Right.
Mom and dad would say, come back home. But I'm also incredibly stubborn. I'm a Taurus. And I did not want to prove them right to say, go take that corrections test, follow my footsteps and be a court officer. And that's really just what fuels me to keep saying, let me try, and let me take on a second job like my dad did, take on a third job like my dad and my mom did.
So how did you worked at one place for $16 an hour, then you took the leap of faith again to say I'm gonna work for free.
Yes.
How did you manage yourself financially going from that place to then be like, I'm gonna work for free and do everything?
Yeah, let us take notes. So
what what were you doing?
I don't recommend what I did, okay? Because I am paying for it to this day.
Wow.
I'm hoping President Biden will do right.
Please.
But I decided to go to grad school, and I went to NYU for my master's at the same time.
Wow.
And I took my student loan money.
Yep.
To
Oh,
support
man, you did that?
myself. Yes. So now $245,000 later.
No way.
Because they used to just deposit it in the account.
Yes,
Right,
no
right,
questions.
Same thing happened with me.
We all know that.
Same thing happened to me.
Yeah, we know about that. We know a thing or two.
Yeah.
Who is trusting 18, 25-year-old?
Yeah.
Like, I was not equipped.
Chase.
But they knew that they were going to get their 7% interest on the back end. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to skim a little off the top. This is for NYU. This is for me. This is for me. A little bit. This is for me.
And make
Listen,
it
ask
work.
me,
Yes.
ask me how I got my first car.
How did you get your first car?
You already know. You
Listen.
just said it. You already
But I
know.
wonder, and
Exactly.
this is a question, because someone said to me the other day, they were like, there's so many talented people in the world, and the thing that really makes an entertainer, breaks entertainer, is luck. And I told them, I said, no, it's sacrifice. And I wonder, like, for you, like, moments where you were like, you know what? It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it. Like, what is that kind of mental conversation that goes into it? Because I don't necessarily believe in luck. I believe it's like, I'm walking with destiny and I'm just not going to walk away. I tell people I just never got to plan B. So it's like, when you're thinking Melissa's plan, you're like, okay, you know what? Sacrifice. Like, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. And you're still saying, like, you're waiting for it to pay off in some ways. So
Absolutely.
what do you think about that?
Incremental wins, right? So
Explain
really
that to me.
embracing the little
Small
wins,
wins.
small, chipping
Like, give
away,
me
chipping
one.
away. I was out in LA at a friend's house party. And if you go to house parties in LA,
Right.
You're gonna meet somebody.
You're always gonna meet somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
they're faking it or they're
Mm,
legit, you're
making
going
it,
to meet
yeah.
someone,
A
right?
little both.
Yes.
A little more
a
than
bit
the
of both. But Elle Varner, who at the time was riding high off of her song Refill
Right.
and Only
I
Want to
love
Give
that
It to
Oh, the
You.
joint, can I get a refill? I'm not going to hit the
Yeah.
high
I'll
note.
spare you the Sunday
Yeah.
Mariah note. See, I direct. So if you want to try it again, I got you. But Elle Varner walks into the party and Cece Peniston was on stage, and she's a friend, a personal friend, and she's doing just a pop-up little jazz something. Elle Varner comes out and it turns into this incredible just jam session in the living room of this home. And I said to Elle, again, I walked right up to her, I have so many ideas. I'm a publicist. I have my own agency. Grandmaster Flash is my client. I'm working with Netflix.
Yeah.
Lie. But a little bit of truth, but I'm not getting paid. But nobody has to know that.
Right.
Doesn't negate the work that I'm doing, right? Doesn't negate the experiences and the network that I'm growing. And she said, I want you to talk to my dad. When we get back to New York, talk to my dad. We met up. We went out to dinner. And she became my second client. Cece became my third client. Paid. Paid.
Old school Cece Peniston became your client?
Legendary. Cece Peniston became. And do you know how many times Finally plays in CVS?
Yeah.
Calculate.
That's you?
Calculate. More spins than today's artists are going to get on Tidal or
Right.
Spotify.
Right.
So that's long money.
So this
It's
is
a true classic.
That's crazy.
Absolutely.
You're really living the fake it till you make it. Like, yeah.
Yes. And so
Yeah.
I will say throughout my 20s, fake it till I make it was my mantra in this survival mode and what enabled me to keep pivoting,
But
right?
you didn't feel like a fake, right?
But I did. And it took me therapy and being now 38 years old to realize that era of sleep is for suckers and hustle, grind, P. Diddy, Jay-Z, everybody that was in my time of growing and influence. the mental health aspect of that was negated.
Can I ask you a little bit about, I don't know if this is too soon in the conversation, but what was the difference you felt when you were feeling like maybe you're doing the wrong work or kind of going in the wrong direction to now being like, yes, this is right. This reminds me of when people are talking about the great resignation that's trending, right? And folks had a chance in the pandemic to like really sit with themselves, really sit at home and experience maybe their work in a different way and go, you know what? Nah, right? So can you talk about that transition?
The funny thing is, I'm a careerpreneur, right? So sometimes I wonder if I have transitioned. And then sometimes I wonder, I go back and forth, so you guys are in my process with me. Now this whole, you gotta be an entrepreneur. I got kids. I like my benefits. I like stability, but I also love having a wine life. Why can't I do it all, right? And maybe one day I won't be able to, and I'll have to pick. But I'm trying, or I'm working towards not feeling the pressure to have to choose a life that may not work for me versus choosing one that's absolutely working for me right now. I don't know that I have transitioned, but I will say the choice to continue to work while building my dream was because I have children. And I vow that I will always provide them a life better than what I had. And I do not subscribe to the notion that people must live in struggle, especially Black people. We don't have to struggle. We get to live a life of comfort and ease. And marketing, my marketing job provides that. I actually like marketing. I'm pretty good at it. I like the people I work with. I like what I'm learning. Success to me is balance. Balance is another one of my favorite words. I have to still feel joy. I'm following what brings me more joy and what brings me peace.
Earlier, you said you were just some regular girl, but none of this sounds regular.
I ain't never really been regular.
There we go. That's what I wanted to hear. Okay. You know, because you're definitely you're definitely a rooftop brunch vibe. You know.
Yes.
And so I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, it's the summer. What are we talking about right now? What are we talking about?
Me and my mom got a running list right now in the group chat. Where we going next?
Perfect. Perfect.
Right. Yeah. When everything clears up, you know, I'll see you next weekend. You know, let's link up and talk about
after the PCR.
After the PCR. Tell me what's up. Listen. Yes.
You were working in retail. I see something that's a little ironic. You were working in retail for a long time, stressing you out. You find a new job in tech. You love it. And now you're finding yourself with your passion essentially in retail again. Would you classify your business as retail?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
I guess.
So now you can talk about the difference.
Retail, the industry, yes, but I was marketing at Macy's. And I started as a buyer, an assistant buyer.
Okay.
So I bought lingerie for the East Coast stores, and then we became one. Then I moved into marketing analytics, and I ended. When I left, I was working with app. I was doing pretty much product marketing for the Macy's app. So I kind of ended in tech. And so my next job was perfect because I wanted to move into a company that was a little bit more tech focused. And now it's funny because, yes, I technically sell a product, but to know me is to know if I could give wine away, I would. That's not the fun part. The fun part are the events, the wine tastings, the teaching, converting people to be wine lovers who think they would never like wine, converting my Moscato drinkers to red wine lovers, like all of that.
I figure it's a nice full circle moment because, you know, you have one way to look at retail and then another way to look at it, where you get to market.
But I hate the sales part of it.
I get it, but it's natural to you. It's a part of you. You are your customer essentially. It's like I love wine. I drink wine and I sell wine. It constantly feeds you, which is great. I like that.
Along those lines, what has been some of the hurdles that you've had to overcome in building and some of the things that you can teach someone else?
The first thing I always tell people, especially those who reach out and want to start wine brands, is you have to have a passion for it. This is not a money-making industry for people who look like us. Not yet. They say the joke is to make $1 million, you got to spend. The wine and spirits industry is heavily regulated. It's owned by mostly white men. And a lot of us are coming in and breaking down those walls, but we're doing it over time. And so if you're trying to come in this industry and make money quick, get rich scheme, it's not the industry for you. Most people in this industry, especially the ones that I have met, there is a passion for wine. Whatever your passion part of the business is, wine writing, blogging, wine making, you have to love it to keep going because there's so many rules and they change every day, I swear. And there's always something new to learn. And you're not going to always see people who look like you or maybe take you seriously. Like, I have not experienced blatant racism. I will never say that I have, but I have had microaggressions where it's like people assume I don't make really great wine or I don't know what I'm talking about. And I've had that from people who look like me. And it's like, wait, oh, you really do this? Yes, I've dedicated time away from my baby to like study this and work on this and learn my craft. So the challenge is being passionate about it so that you continue through any type of negativity, and then red tape and regulations and all of that stuff. So you have to be passionate and then find your tribe. Some of the people I've met in this industry now are some of my best friends, and they are my mentors. I bounce ideas off. They're people who encourage me when I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, y'all. No, yes, you can. So find your tribe. If that works for anything you're doing, especially if it's an untapped industry, maybe where the barriers of entry may not be, as friendly. And then in this specific industry, which I wish I would have told my younger self, is learn the laws, the regulations. Every state is different when it comes to wine and spirits. Right now, I'm trying to transition from being a direct-to-consumer online wine brand to having distribution and being in stores, local stores, wine shops, restaurants. But it's scary because I actually pay a premium now for someone else to handle all of that legalese for me. But going into distribution, a lot of that will now fall on me and making, understanding the laws from Cali to Texas to Florida to Georgia to Alabama. It was annoying. They don't even allow you to ship there. It's a mess. I wish I would have did a little more research, but I also know me. I told y'all, if I didn't jump out the window, I was going to find a way to talk myself out of it. Even if I never make another bottle of wine, if tomorrow I decide it's not joyous anymore, I want to do it. I'm so proud of what I've done. I think it's okay to jump out the window sometimes and not be perfect. A mentor of mine once said, perfect is done.
It didn't start there.
Yeah.
It didn't start there. I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay, so tell us about that.
Yeah, my dream was definitely to be a lawyer from day one. I grew up in New York City housing, and I saw a lot of good, bad, and ugly. I said I wanted to be a lawyer because I'm going to put the bad people away, but I'm going to fight for the people that need to be fought for. But that didn't happen. Life happens. I did go to John Jay. That started my college tenure at John Jay. But then, I got pregnant at 20, and I had a baby girl. Just life shifted, and, I started to figure things out and how am I going to do this? Just went into just different areas. I worked in retail. I worked as a temp, and then I got into Thompson Financial. I started to become a research analyst.
As a temp?
As a temp.
Nice.
I didn't know what. I was like, what am I doing? But whatever, I needed to make money to, I was a mom. That's where I first learned how to use the Bloomberg terminal, which is so weird, right? Because I never thought that I would be working there. Being a research analyst and being in the financial industry gave me some different nuggets. And I
see
said,
what you
okay.
did there.
I said, okay, this could be different. 9/11 happened. I got laid off. Out of work, unemployed. My daughter was in Catholic school at the time. And I was like, well, hey, I'm going to make it happen. I'd take her to school. I'd go to the gym. Oh, man, those were some good days. I was looking really good. I had to go to the gym. And then I met another parent. She used to always, rush. And then this one day, she forgot to pay for the trip. The teacher was like, today's the last day. You need $5. I literally had, I promise you, I had $5 on me. This is my last $5 because my unemployment was not coming until Wednesday. And I had my $5 in my Metro card because I would go back and forth to get my baby. And I was like, hey, I have $5. Do you want to pay for the trip? And she was like, oh my God, yes, thank you. I'll give it back to you. I hadn't seen her in 2 weeks, but it didn't bother me, right? I was like, the baby wants to go on a trip. When we connected again, she was like, here's your $5. We walked to the train station together. She said, tell me again, you were looking for a job? And I gave her my whole spiel. I gave her my whole spiel. I was like, yeah. She's like, okay. I worked for Planned Parenthood of New York City. She was the HR director. And she's like, I'm going to send your resume in. She said, it may not be what you were doing, but, you know, I was like, I don't care. I need a job. So I got into Planned Parenthood. They didn't want to hire me because I was too overqualified, but I pleaded. I was like, I have a 5-year-old daughter in Catholic school. I need this job. I got the job. So I was making appointments.
Yeah.
Learned a lot about the female body and about being a woman there. So Planned Parenthood has a special place in my heart. 4 months, I got a promotion, administrative assistant. But with that promotion came, you have to manage the telecom system.
How did you even learn
That is an entire switch where you are programming the internal telecom system to how someone's phone rings, forwards, have voicemails. And that is how my IT career started.
That is very techy.
Wow.
Because it's not just plug and play. So when we get our house phones, there's someone on that back end saying, okay, this person has a new line. This is how we have to program it. These are the features they want. It's all programming.
And you were just thrown into the fire.
I was just thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
But then I fell in love with it because it was a challenge. There were no women. I was 23. And I was feisty. And the techs were rude and mean. I was like, I grew up in projects. I could do this.
Let them know.
I got you.
She's from the Bronx.
I'm from the Bronx, and I can do this. Just knowing that here I am, this black Latino woman from the Bronx, and I'm in here. And then I started to go into different buildings, and I would see the telecom wires, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that is. And then I just started to grow. I just started to grow in my fields. And I'm here
But
now.
during this time, so you have a child,
I have a deal.
right?
Yep.
So now there's a moment when you discover this new field
Yes.
that you're falling in love with.
Yes.
Seems like your plate is already full,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
how do you then put something, what was the motivating factor to put something else on your plate? Because I'm like,
Yeah.
like for me, school was enough.
That came later down the line.
Okay.
So I went into a different company in telecom working for a larger, like over 20,000 users.
Okay.
But I saw where there was a ceiling.
A glass ceiling.
And I said, I was making, I'm very transparent because I think that black women need to be transparent about their salaries. So at the time, I was making like $51,000 and whatever. And, you know, inflation, things happen. My daughter's growing. Again, yes, I'm a single mom, no child support. And I'm like, I have to make more money, but I can't make more money just wishing and hoping. I didn't want to go to school like physically, and it was January 2008. My godmother had passed away. I was thinking really hard, like, what am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna do? And it just came to me, like, go back to school. And I don't remember how I found this school, but I looked up. It was Ashford University, completely online. I was scared to death because I was like, man, if this is like not accredited, if this is a scam, you know. But I did it. I started to go back to school for my bachelor's degree in 2009. My daughter was in middle school. She was like 7th, 8th grade. And I was like, okay, I'm comfortable enough because she's a little older. Like, I don't have to leave her, and I don't have to leave her with anyone. And I could just go to work and come home and do my homework and be in class. And that's how I did that.
And you knew what you wanted to study at that point.
At that point, I was like, I'm just going to study business. I'm going to understand how organizations run, because there was a lot of obstacles in my career. And what I saw was like a lot of politics and just not understanding the business aspect of how companies run. And I think that especially as people of color, we can take a lot of things personal sometimes when we are not understanding the business aspect of something.
I love working with my hands, and I would like, take apart my TV and fix it and put it back together and stuff like that. And so I was like, where can I find my lane? And so we had one of the other EAs. She was doing the IT stuff, but she didn't know anything about IT at all. Like, she would call me over, like, how do you copy and paste something? And she was handling our IT. So I was like, well, let me raise my hand and say, I would like to take an A+ course. Would you guys pay for it? And they were like, yeah. And so I was, not even a year later, they promoted me to IT coordinator. So I did that until I left to, pursue other things. That's kind of how that happened. And I feel like that part is really important because especially as women, we tend to not ask for what we want. I kind of was apprehensive about it. I'm like, well, I'm just going to pay for these courses myself. And like, and then maybe they'll see me. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna ask them. And if they say no, maybe I'll still pay for them. So, and I'll set myself up and it's like professional development for myself. But like, why not just ask? And every time I raised my hand and said, oh, can you guys, do this? Yeah, absolutely. And in my review, they'd be like, keep asking us. We'll support you in whatever way. And then also, when I did get promoted, I made sure that they knew everything that I did. So when you talk about my review, we were talking about this earlier, Kara, right? Like highlighting, this is what I've accomplished. This is how I've saved money. We changed vendors here. You know what I mean? Like this, like highlighting, you guys made a great decision. So then when I come and ask you to pay this money,
Yeah, but people forget.
Please, thank you.
Right.
So my current role, one of my jobs, is an operations coordinator for another private equity firm. And I actually worked with the partner of this firm at the first firm I worked at. So he was an associate, entry level. He was an associate at that firm, went on to be CEO of one of the portfolio companies, and then recently launched his own firm, and then reached out to me and was like, hey.
You go fishing for the good stuff, right? You're like, yo, who you gonna snap up? That's messed up when you go look at it like, yo, you know who I want, right?
Listen, but they know when they got someone good in their
because
corner.
they know what that paycheck is. They're like, we'll match it.
Right,
That ain't a problem.
Yep.
You tell me how much you're trying to put out. I'll be there on Monday.
Exactly. There on Monday. Yeah, so it was crazy because I was plumbing, and I love plumbing. Plumbing is like my love. But I was also pregnant, newly pregnant. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to be plumbing up until, and my husband and I were trying to figure out, like, what was I going to do to supplement our income while I was pregnant and couldn't work, So this kind of fell in my lap. I was like, great. Very transparent up front. I was like, listen, I don't know what my life is going to look like after I have the baby, but right now you guys are a startup. You need help. I'm here. And we'll just stay in communication about what we're doing. And that's what happened. And then I ended up plumbing up until 2 a.m. the night before I gave birth.
What?
So I got 2 jobs, and I love them both.
First of all, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with moving in the direction of your purpose. Figure out what you don't like fast and move. And that's really how I've navigated my entire career. So I really thought I was going to be an A&R. Like legit was like, back in my day, I was in a singing group. Fun fact.
You was in Escape. You was in Escape.
Not TLC.
Nah, you was in Escape. Don't lie.
I look like Candy.
Yeah, you was in Escape.
I know. I get it. I've been getting it all the time. I actually would sing her parts in my singing in the singing.
You was singing
group.
Rain all day,
Hilarious.
wasn't you?
Absolutely hilarious. But because I have stage fright, I was like, I'm going to have to figure out something else, another place to be in the industry. So I was like, I love discovering and developing talent. So I was like, I'm going to go be an A&R. I moved to New York from Houston and was going to Five Towns College out in Dix Hills. And then I got my first internship at Bad Boy. And I was like, oh, I made it. Like, I really thought I made it. And yeah, that was not for me. It wasn't for me. And then I made a clear pivot and was like, well, I also love advertising, and shifted gears, went to FIT, and it was the best decision I've ever made. And I honestly thought I was going to do radio sales for my life.
Let's rewind a bit. When you say it wasn't for you, how do you know? And how'd you feel in your body and your mind? How was that?
So growing up in Houston, I hustle different. The New York hustle is different from the Houston hustle. Not saying one is better than the other. It's just that I was like, well, I need money to survive. I also want to be in a place where someone is training and teaching me how to become great. And in the music business, you kind of have to like be super hustler. Like you have to grind for years. Years before the respect is given, years before the money is given.
Right.
And I didn't have that time. I was like, I'm not on that type of time. And y'all not about to treat me like crap and pay me like crap. And I'm not getting anywhere in a decent amount of time.
So you mean to tell me you weren't going to walk the 5 boroughs for some cheesecake for
No,
Bad
ma'am.
Boy?
Absolutely not. No, that was not my calling.
you were willing to put in that footwork.
That was not my calling
That was not
at
okay.
all. It wasn't really a good emotional fit at all. Like I had a good time. Like it was fun, but I wasn't gaining anything. I felt like, all right, I'm looking at the BDS report. Okay, cool. I'm organizing a shelf, a cabinet. Okay, cool.
You weren't challenged.
I wasn't challenged at all. And I didn't want to have to sit around and wait for the challenge. And I also didn't understand how to be proactive in that space. I didn't know where to take initiative in that space because I just didn't know.
Right.
I mean, for a lot of kids of that era, they probably grew up thinking, like, I mean, obviously watching TV, reality TV, you would think like working for Bad Boy, like that's huge. Like I want to do that. Like for you, it's like I got that and I seen like that wasn't for me. What was that like pivotal moment that made it very clear to you, like this isn't the space that I need to be in, and then that to lead into that transition into marketing and advertisement?
I'm gonna lead with this one specific moment, and it's so basic. It's so, we was called in, all the interns, everybody in the marketing department, we was called into this meeting, and I just showed up to the meeting. Everyone else showed up with like their notebooks and they were ready. I was like, oh, I didn't know I needed. So boss lady was like, oh, you just in here unprepared? Oh, okay. Well, it's just like, I think it might have been a couple weeks in. I didn't know. This is probably our first big team meeting. I didn't know. Instead of, hey, you know what? This is, when you come to these meetings, this is what you bring. This is how you do it. This is how you come prepared.
Everything was so harsh, like, because the seniority of what it was in music at that point in time was, I'm up here. You want to take my spot. You want to be where I'm at.
Correct.
And you come in here looking like this. And I feel like that's not conducive to you prospering.
Correct. Why am I a threat to you? And I am in my first year of college.
But also at the time, there wasn't as many options. So, I'm sure coming up in that time, it was like, well, if there's not that many options, people feel desperate, because now Gen Zers, millennials, they're creating spaces. They're kind of making the moves happen in all these spaces. So now, like,
now they all are desperately searching for a space in digital.
Right.
And trying to do that, the old A&Rs are now trying to do what young influencers in Gen Z is trying to do. It's not working out for you.
And that's why I said I made the greatest pivot ever, because I was in marketing before anybody was like really understanding it from the advertising lens. And the marketing in the music business was a lot of street promotions,
right? Flyers,
flyers,
and clubs.
Exactly.
Hot 97 van.
Exactly. It wasn't the let me run an ad, let me boost something on Facebook. Like they were so dated, they didn't catch up fast enough.
So how'd you see it?
Right. How did you see it?
That's a very good question.
Well, that's why I'm here.
I always knew I was going to be in digital. I remember I would always, we need a computer, Mom. We need a computer. She was like, what? She finally got a computer. So I was always on like AOL.com figuring things out.
What's your screen name?
What was your AIM name? What was your screen name?
It was always my last name. It was always Shan. I know.
It wasn't
It wasn't
like Shambo hotness, like wasn't nothing like that. Just Shambo.
I've always been this fake professional.
Girl, nothing fake about it. That's the boss now.
Yes, I mean, because I went through the Bow Wow's Chick 87 era,
I need you to go. Not Bow Wow Chick.
So, this is great to hear that from you. You kind of always knew, like, I know who I am. And, like, you were a brand before becoming brand was a thing, right?
Yeah. It's so funny. I was actually in a couple music videos I will not name. But
I'm going to look for you
doing
now.
what?
I want to look.
But doing what?
You were in Bump, Bump, Bump.
No, absolutely not. I was not on Bump, Bump, Bump. Okay?
For the record.
And the people that I was hanging out with at that time, that was the scene we were on. And I kind of woke up one day and I was like, I'm done. Thanks, bye.
Right.
Like I need to go and focus on me, building my career, building my life, and running behind the music business and in every party and in every video. And it just wasn't getting me anywhere, and I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I was like, all right, well, I ain't getting any younger. I need to go and make some real money and focus on my career. So in college, while I was at FIT, partying my life away, had a good time. I also took Japanese. Fun fact. That's weird. I know. Wow. I know. I'll circle back around on that. I just wanted to mention it.
We need that.
while it was on my mind. And I thought I was going to do radio ad sales. And the guy that came in our ad group at the time, he was like a sales director at Light FM. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. And he gave everybody his card, and I called him and I was like, hey, I want a job. I'm interested. And he says, great, send over your transcripts, your resume, and, let's talk about getting you started. And I was like, oh, my transcript? He was like, yeah, you have to be graduating in May. And I was like, oh, man, I don't graduate until December. And he was like, oh, sorry, maybe come back in January. And I was like, no, I need an internship. And he was like, absolutely, come on in, you got it. So I started interning at Light FM and in their sales and sales department, and was helping with like a lot of promo stuff. And then when it came time to graduate, randomly, like looking for jobs, I landed in media buying. I was like, well, what is this?
What is that?
It is when you listen to Hot 97 and you hear an ad spot, right? I was placing those ad spots. Okay, wow. So I was working for McDonald's. So anytime you would hear a McDonald's commercial, I bought those spots. Wow. So we did local TV and radio. And I was like, this is so cool. This is like we didn't learn this in school. No one explained that this is a thing. And they had classes teaching us media, teaching us marketing, teaching us advertising in the agency. And I was like, this is great. I said, however, a year later, it's not digital. This was very traditional. I was like, this is not the way the industry is going. I need to go. So I shifted 2 seats over. And because the people, you can always tell the growth of something when you see the staff. Right. So the people that were in some of those high level positions, they've been there for 30 years. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, y'all just like it here. Okay, that's cool. That's not for me. But, Toya, you're just I'm being smart about my career, and I need to be in digital. So I went into digital planning and did that for a pharma. And I was like, this is boring. Because back then, the digital ads were basic.
So this is like the end of Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean,
the beginning.
End of MySpace, beginning of Facebook. Okay.
Well, I think this is kind of a philosophical question, but from what you're telling me, your career was developing as the digital space was developing. So you're sort of having to see around the curve. How do people do that? So I feel like if I say like, oh, I feel like my career is in the metaverse and the metaverse does not fully exist yet, or it's not built yet, or it's an AR or VR. How do you sort of see around the corner and make moves without feeling like you're going to fall off a cliff?
That's a very good question. And I think where this younger generation gets lost is only focusing on what's in front of them. Right. It's like you can only see what's right here. And you kind of have to dream, right? You have to dream about where you want your life to be, right? And it's like, all right, well, I know that I'm destined to be one of the greatest speakers of our generation. So then what does that path look like? Right? And so now I'm able to figure out where in this career trajectory I need to start and where I need to end. And I can build that path. So I always knew, I always wanted to be a part of digital. So what does that look like? When I'm interviewing for a media planner job, well, what's the next role? And then what's the role after that? And then I can go and look at the salary. Then I can go and look at the actual job description and say, well, what in this role, what do I need to learn to get to the next role? I'm already building that pathway to my growth because I know what my end game is. And I've always kind of moved in that way.